Welcome to the Truly Expat Travel Podcast, where I chat with expats about their favourite holiday destinations. Let's be honest, expats are some of the best travellers around, always planning the next adventure, exploring hidden gems, and finding the best spots wherever they go. So who better to ask for travel inspiration? So thank you so much for coming on today. I know we've been in contact for such a long time. I feel like I know you. I know this is the first time we've actually spoke, but I feel like I know you because I have been following your journey and it's so exciting. So I really want the listeners to hear your journey. So let's start at the beginning. So who you are and why you are doing what you're doing and what kind of travel you are.
Okay, so type of traveler. So I've always loved location freedom, just that concept of being able to go anywhere, right? And initially we became expats, and because I thought if you want to move overseas, you need to work overseas. That was just I just for some reason that was my
So
belief. So we became expats. We lived in the Middle East and we spent 12 amazing years in Abu Dhabi where our kids went from 0 to 8. And then in 2022 we went from expats to nomads. We took the kids out of school when they were 8. My husband retired, and since then we've been living nomadically, traveling full time. And I don't quite know what you'd call the schooling that we do for the kids, but some call it world schooling, some call it unschooling. But we basically travel full time. They learn, and we run our property business, our UK property business, as we go where the wind takes us.
it's so fascinating. I feel like there's more and more people now doing what you're doing, and I wish that my kids were small enough to be able to do that. Now they're adults, themselves, so it's not like I can take them and teach them anything. That they've, you know. So I think what you're doing is an amazing thing. So what kind of traveler do you think you are then?
Oh, we love food. So I was talking to the family about this last night, and we are just love to go to places for the food and trying different food. We do mix up our travel. Sometimes we do slow travel, sometimes we do fast travel. So what that looks like is sometimes we'll just base ourselves for like the length of the visa and any visa extensions we could get, right? Which could be like 2 months, 3 months, something like that, and we'll just like create a mini base there. So
Wow.
sometimes we do that, and sometimes we do a bit more. I say fast travel. We might at the moment we're on a 4 month kind of like travel around where we are at the moment, going through different countries and spending 1 to 2 weeks in each place. So we find for us our kind of sweet spot is we like to do a mix of both of those two things. We like to have a flurry of travel, and then we like to be in a base, and then we sort of move between the two. And in between all that we scatter a few pet sits as well, just for but that's kind of like having another base but with pets as well.
Yeah. And so what destination, I've already said it though, but what destination has stolen your heart and why are we talking about it today?
It's an old destination. It's more of a route, really. It's the Silk Road. Then the Silk Road crosses many countries, but there's a few countries that I'm going to focus on. But it's it's the Silk Road.
And is it hard to get to? Well, where do you start and where do you end? Maybe that's even a better question.
Yeah. Really good question. So we were in Nepal before we came here, and that was it. Like, how do you get to Nepal to the Silk Road? And by Silk Road, I mean like the Central Asia kind of like part of the Silk Road. So we decided to fly to Bangkok because from Bangkok you can get a lovely Uzbekistan Airways direct flight to
Oh,
Tashkent. Yeah, so it was really cost effective. It was really straightforward and just much simpler than trying to figure out some crazy way to get differently from where we were. So yeah, direct from Bangkok.
and so where did you start the journey? You said you flew into.
We flew into Tashkent, so we decided to start this Silk Road adventure in Uzbekistan. So my daughter kind of planned this. She'd been lobbying for some time to come to
Ah,
the Silk Road
yeah.
area. So we decided to start in Uzbekistan, and it was roughly going to be a circle. So it was roughly meant to be Uzbekistan through kind of like the Farang Valley into Tajikistan, and then round up into Kyrgyzstan, and then up into Kazakhstan. So that was meant to be the logical
Okay.
route.
And so you're saying that was meant to be. So what did you end up doing then?
So we ended up we as British citizens, we needed to get a visa for
Yeah.
Tajikistan. Other countries can get visas on arrival, and it just became really tricky to get the visa. We didn't end up getting it by the date which we needed to,
Mhm.
so we ended up having to hop. It looked a bit
Ah,
illogically hop to Kazakhstan and
yeah.
wait there for a couple of weeks whilst the visa got started, and then we went back, and then we flew then into Dushanbe to carry on with the route that we planned, but we missed out a little top corner of
Section.
Tajikistan.
That's so exciting. I'm going to Kazakhstan next year. I don't know if I told you that to a conference.
No, I
So,
didn't know that.
yeah, so I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm going to have to pick your brain about what I need to do while I'm there.
Yeah, for sure. The kids are hosting a couple of kind of like events in Kazakhstan actually. So we've done quite a bit of research
Ah,
on our logistics and things like that. So yeah, definitely go
oh,
pick
wow.
away.
And then how old are the kids now, did you say?
They're twins, they're 12.
Oh, because you did say one age, and I thought, okay, then how old are they? But yeah, okay, if they're twins, that makes a lot of sense. What a great age to go traveling. Like, I just wish my
Yeah.
parents were able to take me. I guess once you've got that travel bug in you, it's very hard to let it go. I did say at 21 when I first went traveling that I would get it all out of my system and go backpacking and then, live the rest of my life travel free. But yeah, I didn't. I'm still
Yeah.
traveling.
You you realise once you start traveling
Yeah.
how sort of just how possible it is. And we started traveling when they were eight years old. And yeah, there's a few principles, but you can just go anywhere.
And what does a typical day look like, or a 2-day itinerary look like on the Silk Road?
Silk Road. So I've picked 2 days here to talk about, two very different days. So one of the days would be like a Samarkand, a day that we had in Samarkand. So Samarkand's in Uzbekistan. It's like just, really a beautiful example of a Silk Road city, really easy to get to by train. All of Uzbekistan's really easy to get to by train. So we were there for a few days. We started one day and we went to this, it's called Shah al-Zinda. It's all these ancient tombs and mausoleums, and it's got all the blue tiles and
Oh, wow.
and calligraphy. It's just, having lived in the Islamic world, it's sort of similar but also so different as well because it's just so old. But when we got there, it was a lot of local tourism that day. Unbeknown to
Oh,
us, it was National Museum Day, which is when
okay.
all the countries like places are open and all free. So everybody from across the country was just like there. So we decided to go home and have a film day and went back the next day because we could go back on a random Monday. So we went to Zar Shah al-Zinda with all these amazing tombs and mausoleums from like the 10th, the 11th, 12th century, just like really old. And they're just magnificent. You kind of like, you can't see them from outside. So when you walk in through this like archway and look up, everything's just like there around you. So we walked through there. We just did that ourselves and, read the information around. And then we came down from there and crossed the bridge. And I suppose we were walking in the direction of Rajasthan Square, but we weren't aiming for there. And we picked up what was at one point the largest mosque in the world, only in, I think, the like 13th century. That's when it was built or something like
Yeah.
that. It was built by the local ruler who'd conquered India, and his wife
Wow.
decided to build him the world's largest mosque to celebrate. So, I mean, just amazing. So we walked around there. We could have got a tour guide in there at the gates, but we decided not to. We just went in and walked around, and it was beautiful. And then we carried on walking. It was probably like late morning by this point. Got coffee, got some ice cream, and it was it does get quite warm there in the afternoons. So at that point, we would go home. The kids would do some learning, some projects, have a bit of downtime, and then then in the evening, I think we popped to like Rajasthan Square in the evening just to see it at like sunset kind of lights. Rajasthan Squares, like where the madrasas are, and again, just really ancient stuff, and just absorbed all that history. And we did just find a local tour guide in the area on that day and book that spontaneously just to understand some of the
Mm,
history that was going on in that place. So that's kind of like one day, kind of like walking tour sort of thing, just like,
yeah.
wandering around and just like finding things that are within a kind of like a nice route and to get our exercise in for the day.
Yeah.
And another example of a day is something we've just done really, really recently, where we tend to like traveling a lot overland, just like getting the train from here to there or a drive from here to there. So we took a 5-day road trip from Uzbekistan to No. From Tajikistan to Kyrgyzstan, and it was a
Yeah.
5-day road trip along the Pamir Highway. And we got up relatively early that day, got in the car, and ended up at this market that's kind of like in the no man's land in between Afghanistan and Tajikistan. And when I say no man's land, it's a river, it's an island in the middle of the river, which is the border. And
Oh,
there's a market there, which is on one every Saturday, where like Tajiks and Afghans meet to like socialize, trade,
oh,
and things like that. So we made our plan to stop there on a Saturday so we could have lunch and we could just, absorb that and just see what it feels like. And, the kids were having conversations with local kids because they wanted to improve their English. And we're just sat down chatting, having shashlik, talking to these Afghan kids about what they do at school, what their goals and dreams are for the future. Yeah, so that was another example of a normal, well, no, normal, of a day.
of a day.
On the
Did you,
Silk Road. A day on the Silk Road.
so yeah, not on a normal day for people, most people.
Yeah.
Did you drive yourself when you said you picked up a car and went 5 days?
Yeah, we thought about it, but because it goes through some quite remote and rural areas, I'm no mechanic. I mean, I could maybe I could change a tire, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So no, we decided it would be a bit wiser. We found a driver in Dushanbe who was experienced of the road and who knew where they were going, and then we went with them.
Plus, you could also enjoy the ride, right? You can look out the window and see what's going on rather than worry about navigating and driving on scary streets like I have in the past.
Yeah. I mean, there was plenty of people who were doing it self-drive, but and having done it once ourselves, maybe if we were to do it again, maybe we would.
Yeah.
But for the first time, it's just kind of like you assess your risks differently. And you're right, it was just nice to be able to enjoy the journey, learn about where we were going, rather than thinking, where do we fill up petrol or whatever,
Exactly. And educate us a little bit in terms of the Silk Road. All I know about it is what Rebecca Lumley told me all those years ago when she traveled along it. But educate us a little bit about what is it? You told us the countries, but why is it called the Silk Road? I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, so it's so much bigger than these countries, and it's not just one road. It's it's the path of roads that basically connected Europe to China, and 1,000, 2,000 years ago, So it was like just the travel points where how everyone got around really before, and how goods passed between east and west before sea travel was really invented around about, like, what was that, 14th, 15th, 16th century, that sort of thing. So it's the network of roads that go between China and Europe. It's not one just road. There's many routes, so there's many Silk Road cities dotted around all this part of the world, or Silk Road history.
Because that was the trade route, right? It was the trade route, how they got from A to B, rather than, like you said, now it's planes, but before boats and ships came about.
Yeah, and everything, silk was moved even before, like, silk. It was some people called it the wool road, because like that was more. It wasn't just silk which traveled along it. It was everything, like all trade. There's one amazing place that I'd never heard of before that we came across in Tajikistan, called Hulbek, and it used to be like a crossroads. I think you can quite easily get to China and to India from there. But there was this fortress. And the front of this fortress is like, the huge kind of entry. The left part of I'm drawing a rectangle with my fingers here.
Oh, sorry. I should be saying
it. You can see. The left side was decorated with crosses, but decorative crosses in like calligraphy. And the right side was decorated with Buddhist swastikas. So they were the main two religions. And this fortress wanted to welcome all of its guests that came from both parts of the world. So in its like diplomacy, part of it was decorated inside and out with crosses for the Christians, and part of it was decorated with swastikas. And this is like more than 1,000 years old, right? And it was just just really symbolizes that meeting point and the crossroads of the cultures.
Well, I guess that, I don't know if that's your answer, but I guess what I was going to ask you next is what surprised you about the trip?
There has been so much. And I think one thing that did surprise us, which is maybe a little bit not Silk Road related, because you come across other things when you're here. But one thing that we happened across in Uzbekistan was a sea that had actually disappeared. So a sea which used to be the fourth largest lake in the world. So
Oh,
only Lake Superior is bigger than this. So like there was ships, there was a port town there. They used to can fish. Like it was a thriving port community, and it's in the middle of a landmass. And in the period of about 20 to 30 years, it's pretty much totally disappeared due to human intervention. It's like this sea has
wow.
disappeared. Like there are ships that were once there, which are now just sat there in desert. And I was like, how can there have been a sea that I'd never heard of, the Aral Sea?
Yeah.
Like I'd never heard of the Aral Sea before. And how can a sea that was the fourth largest lake, like bigger than all but one of the Canadian lakes. How can we as humans do something that makes that disappear within pretty much disappear? There's a bit left now that you can drive to, but disappear in 30 years. And it's in this region that I'd also never heard of called, I'm
Yeah.
going to say this, I might get it wrong, called Karal Pakistan, which is
Okay.
an autonomous region which I'd never heard of. And it was just like, you don't know what you don't know. And the disappearing sea, an area I'd never heard of, it was just mind blowing. We actually
What
went
a,
and took a little trip there to go and see it because
wow.
it's fascinating.
What an education for those kids. Like to show them firsthand, like everyone's talking about what the world's going or world's coming to. But and when you see it in what do you call it, school books, it's not quite the same as actually seeing it for
Mm,
yourself to see what the last 30 years can do to land, right?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And at the same time, the juxtaposition of a lot of the other things that we're seeing have been here for thousands of years. Like, we also drove past this sky burial site, which was like a religious burial site for Zoroastrianism, which was like a religion sort of 2000 years ago. So on the one hand, we're like, look at what humans we've done in 30 years. On the other hand, it's like, that is an actual burial site, like a mound where they used to have sky burials more than 2000 years ago, all at the same time.
It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. So I guess what was the standout moment for you then?
Oh gosh,
So
there
many.
have been so many standout moments. But I find, and we were talking about this last night, really the standout moments that stick with you, it's the human interactions. It's the conversations that you have with people. It's like where you kind of like bump into somebody, like, we were chatting to some kids at the Afghan market and just talking to them about their goals and what school's like, and sitting to watch a sunset and sometimes just seeing a beautiful sunset and just being able to watch it. Or
Yeah.
we had a 17-hour train journey across Kazakhstan, and we booked the tickets a bit late, so we didn't get a bed. We were like sat
Oh,
up,
wow. Okay.
which was but we ended up the kids ended up playing cards with this Kazakh boy, and like learning new card games, and just we had a really brilliant trip. So it's those moments like that which are unplanned, unscheduled, that just kind of happen,
Yeah.
that are really memorable.
Because I was going to ask you about if there was any cultural interactions, but I think you've just answered my question. What's the best time to travel there? Like, what months are you traveling there?
Yeah, so it's why we chose to come here at this time of year. So we've been here between May and September
Hmm.
because we kind of got the sweet spot in the weather for all the countries.
Okay.
In Kazakhstan, for example, I think Kazakhstan's capital is like the second coldest capital in the world in winter time. So you hit October and that temperature just like drops right down. Likewise,
Wow.
here in Kyrgyzstan, kind of like October-ish kind of time through till March-ish, you can
Yeah.
get, it's snow in certain parts and things. So we wanted to, whilst that'd be beautiful, we wanted to keep things simple. So yes, it is relatively warm, not so much Middle Eastern warm, not like,
Yeah.
like Dubai, Abu Dhabi warm. It's manageable. You can be out in the daytime, but we got the best of the weather in all the countries from like May to the start of September.
Oh, nice. I really want to go to Kazakhstan to ski because everyone's talking about
Mm.
skiing in Kazakhstan at the moment because it's more affordable than some of the other places
Yeah,
and it's beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
So what's one thing that you wish you knew before you left, or was there like a travel hack that you learnt along the way?
Yes, there's a few sort of things that we've sort of figured out since we've been here. First of all, Airbnb for sort of bookings hasn't really been great for a few reasons. There's not been a lot of availability really on Airbnb, so it's limited. It's relatively expensive, really, and they've got this weird thing here where lots of places it'll say it's 2 bedrooms, but when you really dig into it, it's 1 bedroom with a sofa bed. It's 3 bedrooms, it's 2 bedrooms with a sofa bed. And
Yeah.
like, I've not come across that as abundantly as we've really noticed here. So we've gone off Airbnb here. We've been doing bookings more through booking.com and Agoda and other sort of places like that. Um, and another kind of like weirdness that we just had to get used to and just kind of like accept and laugh about was in Uzbekistan, there seemed to be on accommodation, like the amount of tax would vary quite significantly, like percentage wise on the accommodation booking at the end. So it wasn't always visible when you made the booking, and then you'd be like, and we didn't manage to figure out the logic to that. So it was always like a fun game, like what's the tax going to be this area? What's the percentage being used?
So is there any foods that we have to try, or is there any drinks you think you have to try when you get there?
Yes. So I'll start with drinks because I've been kind of like putting my head in my hands a bit about this one. That you can get in, like, cherry juice here is just like a really popular thing, like, because I think so many cherries are grown here. So in like anywhere, whether it's a corner shop or whether it's a supermarket, apple juice, orange juice, cherry juice, and my kids adore it. In fact, they've been telling everybody not only to get cherry juice, but they've also been saying, and Mum likes it with vodka.
Why not?
I know. So the local like cherry juice, which is just in a carton, but they mix it with sparkling water, and that's really nice. You also have to like get into your plovs if you're in this part of the world. We can like feel that Tashkent plov. It's called Tashkent plov. You'll see it on the menu in places and the places, but Tashkent plov is also amazing, which is like rice which has been cooked for ages with kind of like carrots and another similar vegetable. And it's normally got sultanas and chickpeas and some other berries mixed into it. And it's just comfort food with some like really slow cooked meat on it as well. So that's been amazing. Kurt balls is something that you might look at and might not want to try, but you cannot leave a stand without trying the Kurt balls, which are like these hard white balls. Basically, they're basically like hard yogurt balls, and they're a bit salty. You just My husband says they taste nice with like as a side to beer or something like that. You have to try Kurt ball. Have I got a last thing to try here? The bread in this part of the world is really, really amazing. It's like a circle, and they cook it in like a tandoor type of oven, and they push the middle down. So the middle bit is like quite flat and crispy, but the outer edges are really puffy. So do like bread tastings, because some of it's doughy, some of it's airy. Like, so in every different bakery really has its own way. So get on with some bread tasting from just all the little local bakeries that you see on the street.
Have you found each country has a very different cuisine, or they're very kind of similar?
If you were to do some Venn diagrams on this, there's definitely some crossover, but there's definitely some differences as well. So the bread in principle is the same, but it's a bit different in each place. Plov is everywhere, but again, different in each place. In Tajikistan, for example, there was quite a lot of Turkish tea houses. With like kanafa, so it was quite easy just to find Turkish tea houses, go and sit there, and you'd feel like you were in Istanbul or something like that. And we just didn't see as many of those in other places. So there's certainly like varieties, differences for the same thing, but in the different countries.
And if you could give one tip or a bit of advice for someone who's thinking about going on a journey to the Silk Road, what would you give? What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, for this region, if you were going to go through the stands, whether it would be one or to move through a couple of them, I think it would be learn some Russian, or at least get familiar with the Russian alphabet so that you can read menus and signs and things like that. Because Russian's the connecting language, although the countries all have their own individual languages. If you're moving through a few, a lot of the signage that you see everywhere is in Russian. So at least if you understand the the lettering, then you can read things, you can understand menus. And whilst in some places the menus are in English as well,
Yeah.
we just felt a bit more confident going into other places where there's no English at all. We do Google Translate, and the fact that you can read a few things and the fact you can just say even a few words has to communicate has been really, really helpful.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful because a lot of the times if you go to a tourist spot, they're all speaking English, but then if you're going to go
Mm.
off and do some little towns, it's really hard to, and you can't speak the language. It's
Mm.
one thing to be able to read it and not understand it, but it's another thing to not be able to understand the alphabet at all.
Yeah, understand. And just like those little interactions as well. So we had like a walk, we took a walk up this hill. It's called Solomon Hill. It's like Solomon from the Bible. So again,
Yeah.
there's always ancient thousands of year history around this place. But as we were walking up, there's all these like local ladies who were like walking up, who honestly, they must have been maybe 80, maybe, but really a beautiful age. And we could be like "Strasvitiye, das Fridania," and they were like "horror show," and we just sort of through a few words exchange backwards and forwards was just really lovely. So yeah, it's really helped just us have little interactions like that with people who otherwise we just
Mm.
we wouldn't have known, well, yeah, been able to interact at all. Okay, so there's been a really surprising, a lot of things that have surprised me most, I think, about being in this part of the world. Because like I say, we came here because one of my daughters really wanted to come. She really wanted to come to the Silk Road. So we came for her. I didn't really know much about it. And when we were first walking around Uzbekistan, I kept thinking, don't judge me on this. I kept thinking, why is the nativity story so big here? Like the camels and the three wise men. Like
Mhm.
why is this being celebrated so much here? And then kind of like I realized it's not the nativity story. This is where the three wise men came from. Like, and there wasn't just three of them. This was like what life was like, 2000 years ago and before. It was, these men who were into astrology, or people, and there was, they were travelers. They would like travel the Silk Road, and they were walking with camels and all their wares, trading from east to west. And these were the people of the Silk Road. It wasn't the three wise men at all. That was like
Yeah.
my frame, my perspective. Looking at it the way, that was what this region was like. And and that blew my mind, really.
Yeah.
So then when that unfolded for me, I was then just able to see, this sounds a bit of a big concept, but in a way, history from a different perspective, because I realized so much of my historical timeline was based upon the Bible story and,
Yeah.
like 2000 years ago, and, Christianity, I suppose. But in this region along the Silk Road, there were so many other religions before that, and there was so much movement of people before that. It's been a really fascinating thing to learn about, not only those empires, but those religions that like predated a lot of the religions that we know today. Like this, one of my daughters is really fascinated by Zoroastrianism, which kind of is more than 3,000 years old, which, I don't want to, as again, someone could say I'm wrong about this, but like inspired or like laid the seeds for, Christianity and Islam, which I'd never even thought that there were,
Yeah.
other religions that had been established for a really long period before then. So being here has just given us the ability to see that and to experience history from a different perspective, and see the timeline of us as humans differently. So yeah, my mind's been blown by
I
being
can
on the
see,
Silk Road.
I can hear in your voice how motivated, how excited you are, and that gets me so excited because I love history. And I love those pockets of information that you find while you're traveling that you go, oh, oh, it connects to all the dots, or it's like a wow moment yeah. So I think what you've done is you've really inspired me. I don't know about anyone else, that I think I need to do more than Kazakhstan next year, and I need to do a little
Yes.
bit more of the stans, which to
Yeah.
be honest, it's never really been on my bucket list, but it is now. So
Yeah,
thank you.
same. Oh, my pleasure. I'm so excited to hear you say that. And I did think before we spoke, like, should I talk about the Silk Road, or is a more specific country better? But there's like the bigger kind of like area of like, the Silk Road. And then from there's just so many other places that you can drop into, either in
Yeah.
one trip or in a like selection of trips over like a few years.
Thank you again for coming on. I've really enjoyed listening to your journey along the Silk Road. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, I will link everything in the show notes. And if you want to follow along on your journey, because I mean, your journey is so fascinating to so many of us, I'm sure there will be lots of people wanting to book their flight over to the Silk Road sometime soon. I can't wait to go. I'm really excited.
Yeah, oh, Paula, you will love it. You will really love it. And I just want to say, I really love what you do. I've been following your travels for a long time as well, and I love how I was really excited to hear that you started to do the project. Focusing on the destinations, and to really allow deep dives into some of the places that you do too, that you go to too. Because I see some of your pictures, and I'm like, oh, I'd love to know, where did she go to there? How is this? So yeah, thank you for everything you share and you do. It's been really,
Oh,
really lovely to chat with you in real life today.
yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure I'll have you on again soon to tell people about your next destination because
Yeah.
you're traveling so much to so many great places. So again, thank
Yeah, anytime. My
you.
pleasure.
Bye. So join us again next week on Truly Expat Travel Podcast, where I have another exciting destination in a world that's too big to be left unexplored. Ciao for now.